Muy buenas noches. Les habla Nasi Boricua. Today we are in the Clouds Podcast, episode 6. This episode is brought to you by Tribu Studios, located on the second floor of 15 Webster Street in North Tonawanda. Tribu Studios is an arts cooperative that shares and rents creative spaces for dance, yoga, art, galleries, events, and more. Tribu Studios is the home base of contributors Rumbon Dance, Ubuntu, and this very podcast, In the Clouds. For booking inquiries, contact 716-572-9420. Visit tribustudios.com or visit Tribu Studios on Facebook and Instagram. I am your co-host, Sergio.
And this is your co-host, Josh. We're going to do things a little different today. Got a few other hosts with me. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, I am your guest co-host, Eriquita.
And I'm guest co-host Gigi, also the sound engineer.
All right. And like I said, we're going to do things a little different today. We are grilling one of our co-hosts today. Asking you a few questions about yourself, your endeavors, your life, because you have a pretty interesting life, and we all see you in different ways. You ready for this shit?
I am ready. I was born ready.
All right.
Let's get it.
All right. So let's start from scratch. Let's start from the beginning. Give us a little bit of your background. Share with us some of your earliest memories.
Well, my name is Sergio Aquino. I was born in Brooklyn. Left Brooklyn when I was 6. Went to Puerto Rico and was raised over there up to my junior year in high school. I got into some things that I'm not at the liberty to discuss. I had to end up leaving the island. Ended up in Buffalo. Did my senior year here and moved to Arizona. Went to college in Arizona. I lived in Puerto Rico for a while after that again. I lived in Connecticut, the city, did my fair share of traveling. There's kitchens and restaurants everywhere. And out of all the places I lived, I said to myself, I'd rather be broke in Buffalo and start from scratch than anywhere else that I had lived up to that point. So here I am, at 42, 2 girls, and here we are.
Sounds good. So, Sergio, before we start, I just gotta get this out the way. I know that recently you got married, right? And
Yep.
I just want to ask, how has that dynamic changed? And I know that you're a man, that you're proud of your family, you're an honorable man and an amazing dad. Can you tell me a little bit how things have changed, shifted, like in the past year or so, before we start talking about this other good stuff?
Well, things started shifting when I met my wife, who also happens to be our producer
Presente.
Presente.
Yeah.
Ahí, ella rápido lo marcó, presente.
We met during that crazy storm in December where people died and stuff.
Like 3 years ago. Yeah.
God takes, God gives, they say. So, some people pass, but I gained a new family with her and her daughters. We met around then. We were talking for a little. Then our kids met and they clicked and everything just started moving, organically and pretty fluid. I was living in the country in Boston. She was in Buffalo, in North Buffalo. My daughter's bond with her is amazing and her daughter's bond with me as well. We all get along. Life changed, but I say for the good, Things started progressing with us and here we are now, about 2.5 years later, married. And
Pues mira, antes que siga, ¿qué fue lo primero que tú le cocinaste? What was the first dish that you said, let me impress this girl, let me impress her, let me see. What did you make her?
I think the first thing I made her were those tacos, right?
Yeah,
Tacos.
those
No, they have to be
barbacoa.
great tacos.
Yeah, it was some barbacoa tacos
Oh,
with cherry
okay.
olives.
He had cooked it for hours and
Yeah.
hours.
Let me blow your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She-
So we're not talking about Taco Bell people here. We're talking about Taco Gourmet.
We're talking about,
Yeah.
real
Chalupa
tacos.
Crunch
Her
Wrap.
daughters loved them too. Her oldest one, Aria, was like flabbergasted with them, But don't get it twisted. She could throw down in the kitchen too.
Okay, nice.
So,
You've restarted countless times. Even when I first met you, you had talked about projects that were just coming to an end or failed. And even the time we've been together, we've started new projects together, right? So in those failed projects, what challenges did you face? And, what caused the projects to fail and what have you learned?
well, sometimes to my own demise. I've always been a very ambitious person in life. You know, I grew up very poor. Not a lot of opportunities, you know, in Puerto Rico when I was growing up. There's no government cheese out there, you know. But when I came to the States, it was like a clean slate for me. And I always knew I wanted to break this generational cycle of poverty, not living it, but the mentality of it. You know, my biggest struggles in business is expecting people to care about the business how I care about the business, you know. I always had partners in business because people that are close to me, for some reason, I was never able to do good by myself. I can't watch people that I care for struggle if I know I'm doing good, you know. And it cost me dearly. It cost me dearly with family. It cost me dearly with friends. And in previous relationships, you know, my hunger and my ambition I never questioned that, you know. And now at 42, looking back at some of the business moves that I did, you know, I wish I would have done it by myself because I'd be in a way better position right now.
Mm-hmm. Like there's less to lose in a situation.
There's less to lose, and you know what you're counting on, which is yourself. You know, when you're counting on somebody that is there for a certain amount of times, but then certain things in their lives become a priority, and you're left doing a lot of the work, but then having to split profits.
Right.
You know, when they say the money is the root of all evil, I've lived that. Like I said, I've lived it with friendships. I've lived it with family. And it's stuff that scars you, you know. It makes you paranoid to be able to deal with other people. It's like when you break up with somebody, you know, now, you know, you think that, so like if you break up with a girl, you think that all girls are the same. Or for a certain period of time, you judge every female based on your past
personal
relationship. And I feel like females do the same thing with men. You know, that's why everybody nowadays has trust issues, because we bring our old baggage into a new relationship. And it's with everything in life. It's not just a sexual relationship. It's with a friendship relationship and all of that, you know, even with your kids. You know, when I went through my separation, I found myself for a time where, you know, my daughters told me, Dad, you yell at us a lot. And that, like, it hit home, you know, because it wasn't my intent to hurt my kids or to yell at them. You know, I was just going through a very difficult time where life as I knew it completely changed. And they were the only people with me. We were living together. So at times I was taking it out on them, you know. So I made adjustments. I made changes, you know, as far as business decisions. I'm a little more precautious now of who I do business with. And sometimes it's better to be alone than with bad company, you know, especially in business. Because like I said, somebody else's baggage can cost you a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think that has been the biggest lesson from that experience that you had coming in, investing in business with other partners and seeing that kind of fall in, but you kind of held the weight? You say that was the biggest lesson for you at that time?
Yeah, because like I said, most of my business ventures has been with a partner, you know, and I walked into it knowing they maybe didn't have the vision that I had. You know, like my first partnership was in the houses, and it was with a friend. You know, we lived together at the time. I'm not going to mention names here, you know.
Tíralo pa'l medio. No, mentira.
But it was a situation where, you know, I had this friendship of years, and he was always talking about, oh, you know, me and my boys are talking about this house and that house, and we want to do this. But they never did nothing. I'm the type of person that if something is in my mind for more than 3 months, I'm going to try it. You know what I mean? And I told him, like, you want to do a house? Let's go do a house. And in 3 months, we bought our first house, you know, and it went from there. I pushed him. I pushed family in it, you know. And it just never changed as far as me being the one having to carry and push the load. And at this point in my life, I just, that's not something I'm interested in. I want to work with people equally as ambitious, equally as hungry. Creativity can be taught, you know, knowledge can be given, but I can't teach you ambition. You know, if you don't want it, I'm not going to sit here and try to make you want it anymore, you know?
Do you
Yeah.
feel that it's important sometimes? And just looking, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. Looking at everything, you think it's important sometimes that we have expectations of people like we have expectations of ourselves, right? And we kind of got to meet people where they're at sometimes. I mean, at least for myself, that's how I feel, right? But how do you feel about that? Do you feel that maybe expecting something from, you know, partners or business partners, expecting what you put in, sometimes it's not what they bring out, right? So that's kind of a challenge.
Correct. I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about. Yeah, life happens, you know, things happen in people's lives, and of course emergencies, and some things are just out of our hands. I'm a very considerate person. I'm a very reasonable person, you know. But
Tú eres blandito. I know
Like
that.
I
Everybody's
said,
like, oh, that's the root chef.
Yeah.
No, tú eres blandito,
at the end of the
Sergio.
day, you know, if I'm in business with you for 3 or 4 years and you still can't come up with one good idea in our business venture,
Then
there's
you have to
something
move
there.
on.
There's
Yeah, you're
something
absolutely
lacking
right.
there, you
You
know.
have to move
So
on.
I'm old and wise enough to know that I'm not trying to invest 4, 5, 10, 15 years in a partnership like I did in the past, because certain things are just not going to change. You know, like I said, I can't teach somebody ambition. You got to want it to yourself. And, you know, with certain people, after they made a couple of bucks, they got comfortable. You know, and I understand, you know, you have kids, you have a wife, you have a life, but you know what? So do I.
Yeah, you're
And
always
sometimes
moving
there was
forward.
times where I had to bring my kids into the houses, into my projects. And if you're my partner and you're not willing to do that,
Exactly.
I just can't be in business
Well,
with
that's
you. I don't
understandable.
expect
That's
you to do it all the time. But if that's what needs to happen for one day in a couple of months, then that's what needs to happen. Don't
Right.
tell me that you can't come because you're kids. Because
Yeah,
I would
that's
never
life.
put my
Yeah, right.
family or my kids as a hindrance. Because at the end of the day, business is business.
Right.
And, you know, especially if it's a friendship, they should know that. They should respect that, and
Yeah.
they should honor that. Because
The
at the
time
end
that
of the
you put
day,
into
the
things,
business
yeah.
is not going to stop for your life. No businesses, you know?
So before we get too deep into the podcast, I want to just point out the whole reason we're interviewing you is because you're an entrepreneur through and through. And if you could just walk us through the different ventures and the different areas, because you're a jack of all trades, of business that you've done.
I've dabbled in houses, the restaurant and kitchen industry, you know, all aspects.
So like rehabbing houses.
Yeah, rehabbing houses,
Kick
you know,
flips
working
on those
on houses
bitches.
that were not so much complete rehabs, you know. Like I said, every aspect of the restaurant and kitchen industry. Got into shoes and apparel for a while. You know, I'm a numbers guy. So if I can make $3 or $4 out of $1 in any type of business, and the numbers make sense for me, and it's something that I fully understand, I'm going to jump in.
You see
know?
opportunities
Correct.
to connect a customer
Yeah,
and a product. You
My
do it.
dad always
Yeah.
used to say in life, the only ones to triumph are those who dare to dare. You know, and I've lived my life through that. I never want to be that person that said, damn, I should have done this or I should have done that. No, I did it. Whether it succeeded or failed, it's not a loss for me, because out of my failures, I learned. So it's not a loss,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah. So I just want to preface my next question with the point. You're going to be answering some questions in regards to flashbacks, right? Because I want to know, like, what started this, too. Because I'm a young man. I look up to you a lot. And I feel like every young man needs a mentor. They need a role model. They need some sort of influence, like someone to learn from, right? Some of us don't really get it from our parents, so we seek out other professionals or other people that can make us think in a way. So what were some of those role models and influences for you?
You know, believe it or not, that's a tough one. I had a great relationship with my dad growing up, but my dad was a pastor. And he was a real pastor, not a businessman type of pastor that takes money from the church and stuff like that. You know, my dad was a 24/7. He was the plumber of the church, the electrician. He was the preacher. He did everything, you know. And if people called him at midnight, he'd drop whatever he was doing and he'd go do his pastor duty. So as far as business from my dad, you know, I didn't gain a lot of knowledge, but I did gain a lot of knowledge on what, you know, a good person is, what to look for, you know, the meaning of a handshake, of somebody sitting in your table, I grew up with a code of ethics, as you can say, and I got into the kitchen as just a source of making money. But when my father passed away, that's where I mourned my father's death in the kitchen.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense now.
I was literally putting, my nephew's here, he can attest to it. I was putting 16, 20-hour days. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, go to the bakery, then go to a restaurant till 12 or 1 in the morning and do it all over again because I didn't want to think about the fact that my best friend had passed away. I didn't want to think about nothing. I just submerged myself in the kitchen and I was like, if this is what I'm going to be doing as a career, I want to be the best I can possibly be. So I started working at the best restaurants wherever I was living at. And when I gained as much knowledge as I gained, I would go on to the next without burning bridges, and after a couple of years of doing that, I kind of developed my own cuisine, my own niche in food. I don't just do Latin food. I do a little of everything. My main thing is I like to play with the seasons. I like to work with product that's in its peak as far as flavor and texture, and we go from there.
But mira, before we continue on, I want to talk a little bit. Like recently, you just had an event, and I want to congratulate you. That was an amazing event that we had, the Conuco Icoa catering event, dinner for Do Cacique. And I know we were all there to experience it with you. And they did ask us some questions, how was our experience in the kitchen? I remember I said, hey, it was like Hell's Kitchen, but in a Boricua, right? So I want to congratulate you for it, and also want to ask you, how was that experience for you? I know that you were in a kitchen. Normally, you're in a bigger kitchen, in a different type of area, but this time you kind of had us as your team, which was a great experience for us. How was that experience, and how did you think about combining those flavors? Because you had really amazing, plates that were served. You could tell that they were really thought out of, and that you mixed flavors really well, even with the wine tasting. That was amazing. I think that's been probably the second ever tasting I ever went to, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the food is definitely intentional. Everything you got on the plate as far as colors, textures, flavors, it's all a harmony. It all needs to make sense. There's a difference between being a home cook and a chef, an actual chef. A lot of people call themselves chefs, but a true chef can picture flavors in their head and translate it to a plate. My approach to food has always been, I want to do things that you maybe have had before as far as flavors, but in a way you've never had before, and that involves including techniques from other countries, flavors from other countries, because at the end of the day, food is food. So if you can manipulate an ingredient to mimic another one or two other ingredients, that's a true testament of flavor profiling and how you can manipulate food to make people think like, holy shit, I never thought these two things could go together.
Have you ever served that? Like, I remember the shrimp ceviche, and you had like an avocado mousse. Have you ever served that, or that specific, you put that together specific for this experience?
So, I mean, I've done ceviches before. I've done avocado mousse before, but believe it or not, I never really repeat dishes. I'm not a fan of repeating dishes, especially in my tastings. That's why I like to do different countries, different themes, because I'm just mingling techniques and working with product that's in season to, I don't know, like this tasting, it was heavy on the Puerto Rican flavors. But like right now, it was a shock. Everybody was shocked with the yuca soup. Because every Puerto Rican has had yuca, but they've had yuca al ajillo, in escabeche style, or boiled with olive oil and salt. But at the end of the day, yuca is a starch. So anything you can do with a potato, you can do with yuca. And like I said, that's my approach to food. I'm not honed in, this is what we need to do with this ingredient because this is what our country does. No, I like to take that ingredient, play with it, manipulate it, and do whatever I want. But then when you taste it, it makes sense. Like I said, it's flavors that you've had before because all the ingredients that are in a yuca al ajillo, they were in that soup. There was garlic confit, there was white vinegar, and there was yuca, and there was onions. It was just made into a cream soup instead
It
of a
was
chunky
amazing.
salad.
It really was. It was
Exactly.
amazing.
You know, it's the same thing on the plate with the pastelón. You know, everybody fries the maduros, the sweet plantains, and they put them over the beef. But to me, it's a clunky bite. You know, because when you send the spoon in, sometimes some maduro is not fried all the way, and it just messes
Is
the
he
whole
this
pastelón.
romantic normally with his?
You know,
You
so
see how he
I,
describes food? Isn't that
That's
great?
just how it is.
I made the mousse.
Yes,
with
he
the,
is.
I made the mousse with the maduro to make every bite the best bite of a pastelón.
That is my favorite
You know,
dish. Yeah,
so that's manipulation of ingredients.
that was
you know?
amazing.
Yeah. So it's like right now you're speaking a different language, but that comes with mastery. So with that being said, walk us through your phases throughout your kitchen journey to where you're at now, to where it's like you're saying words
From the very
that
first
like
stage to
yeah.
now.
Yeah, from
Well,
dishwasher to head chef.
I started as a dishwasher. My first job was at Kohl's dishwashing. Then I went to wash dishes. Back in the day, it was known as La Conga Loca. When De Rivera was the owner, he's got a
Wow.
Latin jazz group, and he had this restaurant for a while. And I started as a dishwasher, and the one night the pantry guy didn't show up, and I just volunteered. I'm like, yo, I'll do salads, you know. And that was my introduction to actually cooking. You know, in Puerto Rico, when I grew up in the church, we used to do pastelada. You know, I used to go to Pozuelo, and I learned how to process and work with seafood from these older ladies. That's what they did their whole lives, you know.
Wow.
I used to go with their husband and go fishing. So I did everything from getting the animal when it's alive, you know, sewing the nets, processing the animal, and all the different things that you could do with that animal. But in Puerto Rico, they only did one or two things with that animal. They mastered it, but that's all they did. You know, coming to the States, doing culinary arts, and working in fine dine restaurants, I found another 10, 15, 20 different things that I can do with this same product. You know, and that's what I like doing. I don't like doing what everybody else is doing. I've always said, why blend in when you can stand out? You know, and that's always been my approach with the food.
Yeah. So before we move on to our next question, let me ask you, what age was this? Like
I
your
started
establishment phase
At 16.
with everything.
With, you know, it was my first kitchen job. I went to culinary. I started college when I was 17. And that was great. But honestly, going to school for culinary, it's a waste of money. If you want to do fine dine and be an actual chef, honestly, it's a waste of money, because 90% of what you learn in culinary school, you're never going to apply to the industry. You know, you learn your mother sauces and your basic cuts, and that's about the only thing you bring into the actual kitchen. You know, and nowadays with the molecular gastronomy influence in food, it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
You know, so as far as stages, yeah, I started young, and at 21, when I was in Connecticut at the Birches Inn, I got the opportunity to run my first restaurant. Then I went to Puerto Rico and ran a restaurant over there. And then in Buffalo, my first job when I came to Buffalo was at Rich Products. That wasn't for me. That's more like banquets and stuff like that. Then I started working at Toro on Elmwood, which was like the only Spanish tapas restaurant out here at the time. And, you know, just started showing my approach to Latin, Italian, French, Asian food, you know, mingling all these countries together and stuff. And like I said, using maybe French techniques in Caribbean food, or vice versa, applying dessert techniques to savory food and vice versa. You know, at the end of the day, when you have a bite, I want to see that like wow reaction. Like I said, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Damn.
You know,
Yeah.
I would have never thought of this, but it makes sense. You know, like
Every time.
I think that experience was it was exclusive. Everyone was like taken back. They loved the food. They were asking, okay, what's the next thing? So I want to ask you, the dinner for the cacique was amazing. It was fun. People were giving you a lot of great feedback. They're excited to know. Everybody's asking, hey, when is the next one? Tell me a little bit what's coming up next. Like, what are we expecting now? Like, don't tell me everything, right? Because we still want to have that wow effect. Pero dime un poquito, what is it that you're bringing in next? Like, this time we were with the cacique, so we went taíno.
Yep,
right?
Taíno, Puerto Rican, heavy based. You know, we tweaked a couple
¿Qué viene
things.
ahora, Sergio? ¿Qué viene ahora?
Our next one, we're going to go and feed the Aztecs. We're going to Mexico.
Ay, los Aztecs. Y que
You
va-
know, we're going
what would be some of the ingredients here? Just give me a little
Wow.
bit.
Well,
Por encimita.
as far as ingredients, there'll be sour sop. There's going to be some chilies, obviously. There's going to be a lot of corn because
Ay, claro.
corn is
¿Quién no le
like
gusta el maíz?
the food of the gods for the Mexicans,
Ooh, I'm so
But
excited.
Me
I'm not
too.
going to be doing no Mexican food you've had before. I
No
will tell you
tacos?
that much.
No, pero es que nada de
Definitely
lo
wanna
que
watch,
nothing that
Nacho
we had in
Libre.
that in the first dining experience I've ever had before. I mean, we had some of the ingredients, but never the combination.
Correct.
I could say that each experience that everyone had was very unique, and hopefully you'll repeat some of those flavors because I love them all. So what's coming up next? So we're gonna have corn. It's gonna be Azteca. I mean, I can't wait for that to happen. We're all gonna be there, so
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
It's going to be a good time.
So if you're
know.
listening, sign up now and look on Facebook and find us because you're going to find the menu. You got to make sure that you reserve your spot
Send us a message. We'll reserve a spot for you.
because
us
they
in the
will fill up pretty
DM.
fast. I mean, we're not talking about sitting down and having a McDonald's meal. We're talking about a 7-course meal that's different. So if you want to have an amazing experience, just wait to see it online.
It's definitely going to be a meal that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. With everyone, we're going to go to Spain. We're going to go to South America. We're going to go to Asia. We're going to go to Italy. We're going to go to France. As my kitchen staff evolves, my sous chef over here, Jadiel, I've taken him under my wing, so as he evolves as a cook, chef, our menus will evolve. The Puerto Rican menu was delicious. It was amazing. But that was a modest tasting. That's just the
Modest.
beginning of what's to
Wow.
come. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
insane.
I was impressed. So the time that you guys came over and had arroz con pollo en mi casa, I was like, oh my God. I just made arroz con pollo guisado. I was like, ay, Dios mío,
But
señor.
that's
I'm gonna have to
delicious,
step
too.
it up for you next time you visit me.
Listen, I love homemade cooked meals. I love the regular food. As
Regular?
we say. Like as far as
Eso
Mexican,
fue sofrito a mano, papá.
I love tacos, but in my tasting, we're not gonna be doing tacos because,
No,
like I
you
said,
definitely
everybody
elevate everything to a
does the
different
taco,
level.
And if I am gonna do a taco, it's gonna be a play on it, But there will be no tacos.
I can say
So,
everything was top tier. So
yeah, you definitely
congratulations,
gotta
that was
have
great.
definitely gotta have an open mind for food if you're coming to one of my tastings. But if you like good food, I will not disappoint.
I love that the girls were there and they had some of the food while we were tasting and supporting. And I remember one of the girls said, Can you believe I live with that guy?
Yeah,
I'm like,
Rayleigh, my daughter, the oldest one.
I was like, oh my gosh, I love them. That was great.
Yeah, they love good food. So
So what other projects you have on the horizon? Because you're always multitasking. What else is on the docket?
Well, we're about to open a food stand here at the Webster building. We're going to be selling food outside. It's going to be street food, still refined. Everything, made from scratch, super high quality product. But it's going to be street food. I'm going to be doing that with Jadiel. He's my business partner, he's my nephew. And he literally quit a career job to submerge himself in the kitchen. So I know he's serious, and let's get it going.
So you tend to make business partners with people you love, I would say that, and people you care about. So you and Josh had a venture. Can you tell me about that and like how that whole thing came about? I've always been curious.
Josh is
Damn.
a true sneakerhead.
Yeah, man. Stop playing with me.
My brother was a diehard sneakerhead. My brother's older than me. So, there's a 20-year gap between Josh and me almost. So I started seeing online, and how the second market in shoes, the profit margins are crazy. A retail shoe is not going to go for more than $220, but some of these shoes 2 days later are online for $1,000 or $2,000.
Bien exagerado, bien exagerado. I've
You
seen your
know,
collection, so I understand.
That was our approach. Once again, the shoes that we were selling, you're not going to find on Foot Locker.
Right.
They were $400 and up
Yeah.
shoes, and he's into fashion. So we started getting apparel and all that. We slowed down because, Josh made a career move. He quit his job and started pursuing his fitness business, which is a great thing,
Vamos a invitar a Josh para la próxima.
And,
Yeah.
Hey, now.
I got married. I got in a relationship. I moved.
You got married?
So, all of that changed. Now we're focused on the food, the podcast here. I support my wife with her dance studio. That's why we got this building here. I support Erica with her group.
Yeah, Ubuntu. Thank you.
Anything I can help with the people that I'm close with, they know they can count on me, and I can count on them. That's the main thing. I like being surrounded around like-minded people. Age to me is not really the big deal here. I want people that are entrepreneurs, that are smart, that have something to bring to the table. I don't.
Thank God we all make that cut. We all made that cut. Let's
No,
just
that's
say that.
honestly,
We all did.
that's a
Absolutely.
privilege, man. That's earned.
Yeah,
that trust is earned.
Absolutely, it is. It is. I
So there's mutual trust here between everybody that's sitting at this table, and that's why I'm in business with the people that I love. I don't know if I could do a business venture with a stranger.
agree. It
because
gets difícil. I think we
wherever
all know
money
it's
is
difficult.
involved, I gotta know who you are before I start putting money down
Right.
Mhm.
with you and work.
And
because
we
I
have to
know how I
separate that
am.
too,
When I
right?
get into business, I go hard.
Yeah.
Josh will tell you. I mean, I was spending thousands of dollars in shoes. I bought my brother's entire collection.
Yeah, man.
When we started the podcast here, I didn't know nothing. I know that I wanted good equipment and good stuff, so I found the right people to help me build all that.
Awesome.
My wife became a producer overnight because I saw her count. I mean, at times I used to get mad at her at the amount of hours she was putting, but now she's
Yay,
producing
our
our podcast.
producer.
She's doing the dance classes. She's a teacher. She's a fucking superhero.
She's amazing. She's
Yeah,
amazing.
man.
And that's why
Aw.
she's my wife.
I know. Put a ring
I
on it,
told
bro.
you that he was
So-
romantic. I
Yeah.
told
There it
you.
is.
There he goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Josh.
Again, we're gonna go back a little bit. I just want to show a little appreciation because I've known your nephew since we were like preteens, and I always knew of you, but I never met you until I was probably like 22, 23, something like that. It was like shortly after people got released from quarantine and everything, and it's crazy because some people really don't have the opportunity to be around an entrepreneurial, ambitious person that like really did it independently. And I can definitely say that like my dad, he was always a hard worker, but he just didn't have the resources. And I know that when I was born, as a parent, some of your dreams are on hold, or some of them you just put all the attention on your kid, and you just focus on them fully. Like, I had my time, it's over and everything, but like since being around you, it's like you're that uncle I always wanted, like that person that I can hold close and work hard with, but like I don't know, you're like family,
Aw.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so with that being said, I know what it's like to go hard too, because I mean I've been close to you for like 5-6 years, and it's like, bro, you do not stop.
Right. I think
And
he has played a role in
Yeah.
all of our lives at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and it's
so-
like I'm
we
in the
can
health
relate.
field, and it's like, bro, you need sleep, and it's like, no, sleep is for the weak. Fuck that. And it's just
Pero
like,
mira,
bro,
mira, let
I
me
do hate
ask you, Serge, let me ask you, going back to your chef skills, what advice do you give these chefs out here? Because I have people coming up to me, mira, pero yo cocino. Okay, I'm one too. I say I cook, right? But what's
You
the
do.
real advice that you give these chefs out here? Or people they think they're chefs or they're just starting, right? So we got to give them the benefit of the doubt. And after I had your meals, you kind of humbled me, because I thought I was like the shit chef, whatever. Pero ¿qué advice realistic you have for these younglings that are either in Emerson in high school
They're
and they
cooks.
want to become chefs? What is the number one thing that you feel that you wish somebody would have told you when you started the journey of chef?
I mean, if you want to cook food at the level that I like to cook, and fine dine chefs, you have to put the hours in. The kitchen industry is changed so much. When I got into cooking in the days where you were in a dungeon, like I said, for 16, 20 hours. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you that. A 12-hour shift in the kitchen when I was growing up.
So starting from the
You're
bottom,
working
basically.
part-time, bro. You know what I mean? You're peeling vegetables for 6 hours a day. You're doing one task, for months at a time to move up to the next station or to even being able to touch a protein, But when you're in there an hour earlier, you're staying an hour later. You know, when I started, it wasn't about the money for me. You know, I've always been able to make money. You can drop me in the middle of Africa and I will figure it out, you know.
Montate que nos vamos.
But knowledge is priceless, you know. So I used to show up to places and be like, yo, I'll do a stagine for this weekend. I'll work for free, chef, you know, because I wanted to learn. That
so
knowledge
the
was
advice
gonna
would be
go
to
with
young
me.
people is work hard. Start from the bottom, basically, right? You
Yep.
got to learn the basics
Be
before you can
humble.
move up. Be humble. That's
Have
definitely
a ridiculous work ethic.
Value knowledge over money.
responsibility,
Correct.
¿verdad?
Always.
Those are great advice, I
Money
feel like,
over
yeah.
knowledge, because the money comes and goes. The
Yep.
knowledge stays with you forever. And if you learn something at a restaurant that's gonna enable you and empower you down the road to be able to open your own restaurant, like I said, that's priceless. You know, so at the end of the day, it's the work ethic. Now social media has changed everything, even with chefs. You know, every chef wants to be a celebrity chef. It's been an adjustment for me because that's never been me. I don't like being in front of the camera. I don't like being the center of attention. I just wanted to cook amazing food that blew your mind.
Right. I think you've definitely proven that. Y mira, going back, let's talk a little bit about this podcast here with Josh. Like, what's the future? Josh, what are we talking about here? What's going to happen within the clouds? I feel like it's time for us to step it up a little bit. I want to see you online. I want to see you on Facebook. Bring it. Because I'm just your guest host today, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are here all the time, and you do an amazing job. So can you just fill me in? What's next for the In the Clouds?
So what's next is, you know, start going with videos and
Live?
eventually going live.
¿Y qué
we're-
importa? Mira, ¿qué importa si la gente... We have something that's controversial. Yo siempre digo, tú sabes,
I
la
don't
gente
mind
tiene su
controversy.
opinión.
I've just never been a
You
fan
don't like
of,
it?
I
No,
don't
he
mind
doesn't mind it.
controversy.
Oh, you don't mind
at
it.
all.
That's
You don't
right.
mind it.
I agree.
Working in kitchens, bro, you develop thick skin. You know, I can be confrontational at times. I don't like doing it. I don't like being abrasive. But trust me when I tell you, I have no problem doing it.
When they
You
asked me
know
about
what
your
I mean?
experience, I was like, yeah, I was in Hell's Kitchen, and Boricua Hell's Kitchen, but it was great.
I mean, you have to. You know, you got to have a system. There has to be a reason behind the madness. Like I said, everything is premeditated. When you are a chef, the food that you're putting on a plate has been thought of weeks or months before it actually went on a plate.
What I
You
know of you, I know that you love expressing your opinion y que tú no tienes pelos en la lengua. So I'm guessing that In the Clouds was born out of that. Because I remember earlier conversations about a podcast, and all of a sudden we walk in here, you have this whole setup that's amazing. So I feel like In the Clouds kind of represents who you are as a person too. Will you agree with that?
Of course, yeah. I mean, the birth of In the Clouds was, you know, Josh and I, we clicked as far as sports. And, you know, we used to hang out and watch basketball and football and smoke. And we could talk sport for hours. And we used to joke about for years, right?
Yeah, man.
Oh, man, we should do a
It's like,
podcast
bro,
because
like, we
we're
can-
funny as hell.
Nah, for
we
real.
know a lot.
But we
You
just
know.
have to get high.
And then when we...
Like,
Mira,
that's
yo no fumo,
mandatory.
okay, pero yo,
We have to
I'm willing
smoke.
to come in as a guest once in a while because I feel like I'm a natural MC already
Yeah.
being here
So
today.
So then,
We
You're
love
one of the
you.
homies.
you know, we got this studio, which was for... We were looking for a dance studio for my wife because that is her lifelong dream. And I knew she had the vision. I could
She's
tell
good, too.
that she saw
We're
it
really
before
proud.
it came into fruition. So I went all in with her. When we found the space, it has a bunch of space. It has separated spaces. So I'm like, man, I called Josh and I'm like, yo, you remember when we were joking
He was
around
like, yo.
about doing a
Yo,
podcast?
let's call it
swear to
out
God.
right now. This will be the
Tell
last
him. He'll tell
recording
you. He'll tell
before
you.
we
What
go
did I
live
tell
on
you?
Facebook.
It was like I don't know. We were just throwing the shit around. We were just shooting the shit. And it was like, yeah. I was like, honestly, we should start a podcast. Pass the blunt. Like 2 weeks later, he was like, I might have found us a podcast too. I'm like, nigga, what the fuck?
Mira, I think this place is too cool for us not to take it to the next level.
I mean,
This
yeah.
should be the
We
last
are.
There's
podcast. I
levels to
vote that
it.
it should be the last one
Agreed.
that we don't go live on Facebook. Vámonos live.
Okay,
mira.
I mean, I'm comfortable enough now. I mean, the reason why we didn't start live was because of me. Because, like I said, I've never been one. I think in all the years of me cooking, I've been on TV like 2 or 3 times. You don't even have an idea the amount of fights I had with owners because they wanted me to go on TV or do this video or do this. And I just like, bro, to me, when I was younger, like chefs that went on TV and wanted to be superstar chefs, they were douchebags. To me,
Yeah.
like, that's not a real fucking chef. You're on TV, bro. You're not even cooking real food. Everything's prepped for you. This is not cooking to me. Now, like I said, it's changed. I've gained more respect for that part of the industry, and I feel like the way I'm doing it, I'm not compromising the food that I do. I'm not compromising myself, because that I will never do for nothing or nobody. I am who I am. I am who I've been for the last 20, 25 years. I'm very black and white. I'm not in the gray world. You either love me or you hate me. And if I like you, you're going to know.
I
and
love
if
you,
I don't
but
like
sometimes,
you,
I want
you're
to ring
also
you.
gonna
Sometimes
know.
te quiero
Sometimes
coger por el pelo, pero
That's-
I feel like you're a natural MC. I think that we should just take it. I say we because yo quiero estar aquí vez en cuandito, tú sabes. We'll take it to the next level. We go live on
sure.
Facebook for the next one. I think that we should do that. So whoever's hearing us now, el próximo, we're going to go live. Take it away, Josh.
Yeah. Well, I know Gina had a question.
Oh, so real quick, my last question is, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who has children who's trying to either start or continue their business and still put family at the center of what they do?
So I can only speak for my experience. I had health issues. I had 3 back surgeries in what you could call the prime of my cooking career. I was a well-known name in Buffalo in the industry. All the top chefs in Buffalo, I had either worked with or knew them by association from somebody else. You could drop my name in any good kitchen in Buffalo 10 years ago, and people would know who I was. When I had my health issues, I stepped out of the kitchen. I said I didn't want to cook anymore. Then when I went through my separation with the mother of my kids, my life became about my kids, you know. So any business venture or anything that I was doing became my second priority, because my kids were going through so much. It was a hostile separation, you know. 6 years later, it still is. But for a while, I just needed to shut all that down because my daughters needed me, you know. And it was something that I had to do at that time, you know. No money in the world is gonna feel good for me if my kids are not in my life. You know, some people don't make that decision. Some people will find babysitters for their kids, and I'm not knocking that. I'm just talking about me as a father.
Your preference. Yeah.
I had kids to be in their lives, not to watch somebody else raise them. And no accomplishment to me will feel good if my kids and my wife and her kids, you know, are not part of it or are not involved in it. I'd rather just not do it than to do it for myself, because I knew that if I went back to doing what I was doing, I was not going to be a father to my kids. So it took a couple of years of adjusting that and balancing the time. And now here we are, you know, I'm going crazy again, working on 3 or 5 different ventures. But my kids are with me. My kids are in my life, you know.
Yeah.
We have 50-50 share custody. And, you know, like I said, every win for me is a win for my kids. And if it's not like that, I'm not interested in doing it.
Yeah. You're trying to win championships, man. You're trying to win championships. You need a team.
For sure.
So, moments ago, you were talking about really embracing the fact of being behind the scenes, not liking to be on camera. Like, you'd rather do your thing, stay out of the limelight. What's changed now? Is it just, you know what, so be it? If it's for the greater good, if it's for the ultimate reward at the end, fuck it. Like more of a comfortability thing. Is that where you're at now?
It's a mix of things, you know. My company has changed a lot. I have friendships that were friendships of years, but I feel like some friendships and some relationships have a ticking clock, you know. And a lot of those friendships, I guess, expired, you know. Some of them were for money. Some of them were for amnesia, you know. I don't do things, or I don't help people to tap myself in the shoulder or to be throwing it in their faces. But I believe, like, at least in Buffalo, my experience, a lot of people have amnesia. A lot of people forget what you've done for them.
Mm-hmm.
When they were out here or when they were locked up, you know. I had friendships that ended up in jail for years at a time. I never forgot about them, and when they came out, they forgot about me, you know.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because I never really needed you. You needed me every
or
time.
you all just outgrew them in general.
And
So
yeah,
who's
some
really
friendships,
losing?
like I said, I outgrew. But at the end of the day, I can go to bed with my conscience clean because I know I never did anybody wrong. And anybody that says otherwise is just simply lying.
You hating, nigga.
Every confrontation or issue that I've had with anybody was because they did me wrong. And like I said, I'm not one to hide or shy away. I'll call you by name if I have to. And if I have to tell you a ugly truth to your face, I'm going to. I'm not the one that's going to tell you a pretty lie or be that type of friend that's like, oh, I'm going to support you in everything you do. No. I have core values, and I'm not going to compromise that for nobody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that cost me friendships. That cost me relationships, you know. But as far as now, I feel like, you know, my wife helped me a lot. She's very ambitious herself. I feel like we pushed each other as far as the entrepreneurial thing. It was something I've done before. She hadn't, but she did have a lifelong dream. And she spoke about it the way I speak about food. You know, the dance floor is her passion. And the kitchen is mine, you know. So she helped me, and I helped her. And I feel like that was the biggest change. You know, like I said, the company changing. I'm doing business with Josh. I'm doing business with Jadiel. You know, these are people that are young, but they're ambitious. They're hungry. And I know that I'm not wasting my time with them when I'm trying to teach them something, whether it's business or cooking or life. Because I feel like as far as ethics and stuff, business is similar to life. You know, you want to do good business. You want to have good people around you in life. You know, if you're doing bad business or shady business, you're going to have shady people around you, you know, and those things are ephemeris. You know, I want permanent, solid relationships and friendships where we can all grow together. I'm not an insecure person where if I see you doing better than me or good, I'm not going to start hating on you. No, I'm going to support you. You know what I mean? I want to be part of that dream. I want to be able to help you accomplish what you want to do, and I want to be helped as well. You know, I don't know everything, and I'm open to that, you know, and I like working and dealing with people that are open as well, you know?
Bueno, como tú eres un jack of all trades, tienes que hacer bomba en algún momento. Vas a tener que ponerte a tocar esos barriles con la Luis Mael Paje.
There's a lot of pitorro involved.
Tiene el pitorro, olvídate, vamos.
Yeah. So. It was like I was, like, since I've known you, and like even people I've introduced you to, it's like one of the questions you would always ask is like, okay, if you were to pursue this, what is it that you would need? And it's like so many people are not in a position to be asked those questions from people with resources.
Yeah, and that being said, I wouldn't ask somebody that is not prepared for that question. Like I said, I mean, if you have a vision, if you have an idea and we're close and, you know, I know that I can bring something to the table to help you and enable you to accomplish that, I'm going to be there. You can count on me. You know, I didn't have that support growing up. You know, before I got into business, my father had passed away. And honestly, from my family, you know, as far as like siblings and my mother, I never got that support. You know, I never got support from my mom. You know, my mom never came to eat at none of the restaurants I ever ran. My mom has never had a meal from me cooked at a restaurant. You know, when I started buying houses, my mom used to make fun of me. She used to tell me, oh, you know, what are you now, Bob Villa? And to me, that was that poor mentality. You know, you've lived this life your entire life and you're content with it. I knew that I wanted more. My whole life, I've always wanted more. And now that I have kids, the last thing that I want is to pass away and leave my kids with nothing. Or when people speak to my kids about me, there's nothing good to say. I don't want to be that person.
You're the opposite of that, by the way. You're completely the opposite. And I think even this team right here, I think that we all have had experiences of people failing in our life. I had a fallout with somebody that my blood, you know, and I feel that, you know, I didn't find that and that didn't work out for me. Pero I have found brother figure with you, and I'm, you know, you're not a person you're not going to sugarcoat stuff, but you, at the end of the day, you are softer than what people think. And I mean that with a lot of respect.
I know
because
that.
you do understand. I mean, I know that you seem hardcore, but you do understand things.
I am hardcore.
Even if you get pissed
but
off
it's
after a
because
while.
I love hard, I don't
You
love
have high
everybody that
expectations
comes
for
to my
people.
life, but when I love somebody, like I said, I want them to do good. I want them to succeed.
So, Sergio, I have one more question. Are we taking this to the next level for the next recording? Because I would love to be
I mean, at
in
the
a live
least,
studio.
At the least, we could do Facebook Live. I
Yes.
think,
Yeah,
we might need some different equipment to go live.
I
with
think
the
we're
audio
ready.
we
I
have
think
Gotta
we're
right
get
ready.
now.
Wi-Fi and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But that is the end goal, because I feel like once we go live, it's gonna be even easier and
We have a
organic
list of people that
because
we have invited.
the questions are gonna
So-
start pouring in, whether it's
Absolutely.
through hate. Because when we start talking sports, I'm gonna get tons of attention through hate. Because
This
that's
is
how
okay,
people.
but that's
everybody
the- that's
You be
how
saying
the
some
world
crazy
rolls. It's
shit,
okay.
bruh.
Bro, I speak facts.
Mi
It's
amor, la
just-
gente
I
nunca va a
can't-
ser feliz.
Yeah.
I know.
No
Yeah.
importa lo que uno diga, they're
I
never going
know.
to be
I
happy.
walk away from the sports takes like I'll be in my car driving home. It's like he
It's
does
just-
have a point.
Yeah, I mean,
You
in
know?
sports, people have a short memory, or some people just don't know, or they didn't live through certain things, in sports. I remember all that, and if I didn't live through it, I like researching it. I love sports. I've loved sports my whole life.
What is
you
the
know.
most recent update on sports?
Well,
Basketball. We've been talking
yeah.
basketball because, the finals, Game
Finals.
7, the
This
best
Sunday.
2 words in sports is Sunday, so
Ooh.
we've been talking basketball. Pretty soon we're going to be talking football. That's going to be a blast because I'm not a
Yes.
Bills fan, and Bills
I'm
fans
not, I don't
are
wanna say
bananas.
How
this,
much do you
know.
hate the Bills, Sergio?
We don't hate. I
You
don't
know
hate
what's
the Bills.
crazy? When I first came to Buffalo, I didn't hate the Bills. I love the Bills.
Get
They
them
were
started.
a W on my schedule. I'm a Patriots fan and I was a Brady fan. So whenever we played the Bills, I knew we were gonna win.
I was a Dolphins fan for a
But
little
Bills
bit.
fans, they're just so delusional. And
Pero
I've
they-
never
they-
seen
they
a
just
fan
don't
base.
Give up. They just don't give up. I gotta give them props.
Listen, I've never
But-
seen a fan base more masochist.
I like the Bills. I'm not
It's
completely
the
in love,
it's the
and
shit
it took me a
talking,
while.
though. It's
No.
it's
10
the
years
shit
ago, I would have
talking.
said no,
They
but
unite in the shit.
I think because I
But you
love the
haven't
city, I
won-
kind of give them the benefit of the doubt every time.
But how can you give the benefit of the doubt
They
to
have- they
somebody that's
failed
never won?
constantly.
Mira, es que ustedes son hombres. I'm an emotional creature. I'm a woman, okay?
Right.
But
So
emotions-
what you're saying is the
I
whole
want to
fi-
forgive them
the
for
whole
not doing,
Bills
for
fan
not,
base
for
are
getting
winning.
tackled, not getting that.
Even
So
the
let
men.
me ask you this though: if you're in a relationship and your man
Ay,
cheats on
Dios
you
mío, se
and you
jodió.
forgive him and he
Time.
cheats on you again and he
Babe, I'm
does it
sorry.
again,
Next year, I'm getting my
that's
shit
what the
right.
Bills do every year to their fans. They cheat on them by not winning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
It's kind of weird because like cheating is a choice. Winning is just that somebody played better than you, but you gave it your all.
But
I
how
don't know
does
about
somebody
cheating.
plays
It's a choice.
better than you every year?
Can we do this to another show?
And
Can we talk
every-
about
Nah,
that?
you got 'em
Every
started.
year,
You got 'em
Bills
started.
fans are like, "Oh, we're gonna win it.
We're gonna bring Tiffany
break
in
Tom
and Jenny
Brady's
for the
leg,"
next one.
and it
Okay.
just never comes to fruition.
And Javier.
If you're gonna talk that shit, you gotta walk that shit. And the Bills just never have. Their greatest accomplishment was losing 4 years in a row. The Super
FYI,
Bowl.
when I'm on
That's
this
wild.
board, I do love the Bills. Okay,
That's okay.
I don't want to. I want to piss off everybody.
No, it's okay. You
We
know,
gotta
You
play-
love
Yeah,
the
no,
Bills.
no.
It's
But-
okay.
It's okay.
I don't love them. I like them. It's
I
different.
probably meant
I
honesty.
like how.
See,
I
would you
think I
be in a
love more-
relationship if you just
No.
like them, or would you love them?
Mira, no empiece. I love the fact that this community is faithful to them and
'Cause they
they
got
have
nothing
fun with
else.
it. It's a sport. At the end of the day, it's a sport. Don't compare a relationship
about
to a
fun.
You can't
sport.
say that
Okay.
to a Bills fan that it's just a sport. It is their life. Listen, families
Yeah, but
are
it's not their
ruined on
wife.
Sundays if the
Sundays.
Bills lose.
Yeah, it's a
Sunday is going to determine the rest of the weekend of
That's
regular
the difference
Buffalo
between
household.
the real fans and me. I like them, but I'm
Correct.
gonna eat a pastel whether they win or lose. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go
If you
sleep
talk
and
to
be
some
happy.
You're a
Bills
logical
fans-
Bills fan.
Logical, yes. Thank you.
You're
And there's not a
realistic.
lot of those. I've met probably like
The
5
whole
logical
fan
Bills
base
fans.
as a whole,
They're crazy.
it's delusional.
Delusional.
And
They're
it's
worse.
osmosis. They just
Dios
feed on
señor,
each other's
Gina,
delusion.
help us here, honey.
I mean, there's no
There's
help.
nothing to
Staying out.
say.
Staying
There's
out.
I
nothing
mean,
to
they've
say.
never won. Like people say that the Dallas Cowboys fans are crazy, but you know what?
They have
The
rings.
Cowboys got 3
Mira,
rings.
you know what I did the first time I saw Bill's game? I went dressed in full gear of the Dolphins. It was the first game, December 13, I think it was, or December, I think it was after my birthday, somewhere either the 6th or the 7th. And I went to see a Bills game against the Dolphins, and I went dressed Dolphins completely.
Now
Oh,
I know
that's a
why
big-
you're friends
that's
with
a bad
Serge.
move.
Yeah.
That's
I
the best.
did, and people like I got interviewed right at the lot, and the Bills fan were cooking outside and everything. I'm like, hey, and they were looking at me. I'm like, oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna get jumped in here.
I can't.
But it was
Real,
fun.
like,
It was
I
fun.
can't go
Today's
to a Bills
game?
because I would get in a fight. Because Bills
Maybe
fans
because I'm
are
a
just-
female,
They're
then it's
crazy
spicy. But
now.
they were pretty crazy.
They're crazy
You
now.
know what's the funniest thing Bills fans tell me? You're living in the past. The Patriots haven't won in 8, 10 years, whatever.
I don't
it is.
like
And
the
I'm like, how
Patriots.
am I living in the past? When was the last time the Bills won? It's the present, it's the past, and it's the future. There's 3 things certain in life.
He's brutal.
Death,
He's brutal.
taxes, and the
That's
Bills
true.
losing.
Ah,
It's a fact.
Okay, let's
Put a
wrap it up.
stamp on
Let's
it.
wrap it up.
Yeah, man. So from an interview perspective, we want to show our appreciation. Thank you for opening up to us. People really do deserve to hear your story, and I know there's definitely more. So
Yeah, I'm excited. I think
Yeah.
there's going to be so much more that we can share online, and there's going to be so many subjects, and I'm committed to come once in a while so that I can,
I've lived a
shoot
couple
the shit
different
with you
lives
guys
for
here.
sure.
Make your life a little bit impossible here. I cannot let Sergio just think he's always right all the time. Somebody's got to come here.
there's got to be some
Devil's
conflict, you know.
Sí, tiene que haber conflicto.
Yeah,
Olvídate.
of course. I don't mind
yo
people
estoy
not
pa'l
liking me.
problema,
I'm not
brother.
a $100
Yo estoy
bill.
pa'l problema.
You know what I mean?
But people will listen.
Of course,
They will.
whether
You know.
it's through love or hate. So
They're
that's
gonna
why I
listen.
said, once
Exactly.
we go live, I feel like it's gonna be easier,
Va
especially
a
during
ser-
football
it's going to
season.
be fun. So this is the last take that we're doing this behind the scenes. Next one is live.
Yeah,
so get
let's do
ready.
that.
Give me the date. Our
It's
producer
next Friday.
here. Next
Yeah.
Friday?
Next
Yep.
Friday.
Let's go.
We're doing podcasts every Friday. We skipped the last couple of weeks because some people were out of town and stuff like that.
I'm committed. Next Friday,
Life
I'll be
happens.
here. Let's
So-
do it.
Word.
Yeah, sounds good.
Erica, thank you.
Thank you. It was fun. I had
Gina.
fun. I was honored to be here. We have the
course.
greatest producer.
Yeah.
She's the sexiest one, too. I'm just going to say,
Thanks, boo.
I don't like girls, but, she's sexy. Sexy bitch.
So how about a little basketball now?
Bro, the 2 best words in sports. How do you feel?
Game 7. I still feel like Oklahoma's gonna win. I wouldn't mind if the Pacers win, to be honest with
That's
you.
what everybody's
I mean, both teams haven't won anything, so I don't mind it. It's been not a popular finals because there's no big city, there's no big team. The Lakers are not in it, the Celtics are not in it, but it's a breath of fresh air. I just wish that the superstars played like superstars every game, win or
Yeah.
lose, and it just hasn't happened. There's games where Shea dropping 25 is nothing crazy, but Halliburton getting 4 points on 4 free throws, 0 field goals in an entire game. To me, that's just unacceptable, bro. And that's why you miss those big teams. I mean, you just haven't seen it where you're like, holy shit, this dude is slaying every day. It just hasn't happened in neither of the teams,
Yeah.
But I still think, Oklahoma is the better team, and they're at home. So if they lose, like I said, I won't be mad, but I still feel that they will win it.
Yeah. I think this is one of the more interesting finals. I don't mind the fact Indiana doesn't need one particular person to go off because it's nice to see a whole team get double digits. And as far as OKC's expectations in this finals, like they are the better team, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, for it to go 7 games and you were the overwhelming favorite,
Indiana's just hungrier. You could
Indiana's
tell
just
they wanted
hungrier.
more.
That's what we were saying like 2 rounds ago.
There's just games where if Oklahoma players are doing what just they need to do, there's no matchup for it, so it's gonna be an interesting game 7. I'm not 100% confident that Oklahoma's gonna win it. I'm at like 60-40 right now, to be honest with you,
60-40.
because I wouldn't be surprised if Shea chokes. I mean, have we ever seen Shea in a game this big? This is the biggest game for every player in both teams. You
Yeah.
don't got LeBron in the finals. You don't got Steph Curry in the finals.
why it's so
These
good.
cats have been there. They've done it. They've choked. They've won.
Yeah.
You just don't know what Shea and Chet and Halliburton and Siakam are going to bring. Siakam has a chip, but he got carried by Kawhi in Toronto.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. We love you.
Love you.
So I don't know where you stand on that, and what's your team in basketball? Do you have a favorite team?
I don't really have a team. I honestly just like watching good plays, and I don't like a lot of isolation play. I like ball movement. I like practical basketball.
Yeah.
Like if one person needs to drop 30, I want it to be efficient, like a Jalen Brunson or
Correct.
or a Kawhi Leonard or like an Anthony Davis or like
Yep.
a LeBron. Like you can score at all three levels. You play defense. I want to see both teams trying. So I feel like that's what we're getting out of this finals. Shea last game, I think the thing that stuck out, he had 21 points in the finals. I mean,
that's an atrocious game for him.
For him, yeah. And the most important thing was he had like 8 turnovers. It's crazy because Indiana is almost like water in a bottle.
Yeah, bro.
Or they'll adapt to whatever shape you're playing, and they really force the pace. I don't know. This whole playoffs, Indiana's just been that team. Even before the game winners, the fact that they're keeping games close and shit. And it's just fun to watch. What were you going to say?
The reason why I asked you who your favorite team was, I feel like out of the major sports, the only sport left where fans are fan of a team is in football. And that is because the quarterbacks, the franchise quarterbacks, normally play either their whole career or most of their career with that one team.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receivers, running backs, flip-flop, but the quarterbacks are the same. In basketball,
they're the cornerstones.
it used to be like that.
Right.
Larry
right.
Bird was a Celtic. Tim Duncan was a Spur.
Right.
Magic Johnson was a Laker. Now,
Reggie Miller was a Pacer.
It has changed because players have the freedom now
Yeah.
to
Empowerment.
move around.
Yeah.
LeBron was the one that started that. But that changed the way fans root. I feel like fans now root for players more in basketball
100%.
and in baseball
100%.
too
100%.
than in a team.
Yeah.
Because no player these days is staying with a team.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear that makes a player better. Steph Curry is not better because he stayed in Golden State to win. I guarantee you, if Golden State wouldn't have built a team to carry Steph, which is what happened, Steph would have left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kobe tried leaving the Lakers. When Shaq went to Miami and he won that first year with Wade, Kobe requested a trade. And this is what I was telling you when people forget. What I'm about to say is a hot take. Kobe didn't have that pull in the Lakers franchise to say, yo, I don't want to play here no more. I want out. Jerry Buss told them, listen, sit your ass down. You ain't going nowhere. And then they went and stacked the team for him. Do you realize that in those 2 playoff runs where Kobe won those chips, Derek Fisher hit more game winners than Kobe? Do you realize that in the 2010 finals, Paul Gasol was the more efficient player in those finals? He played better than Kobe. His PER, his field goal percentage, is just the points were less. Everything else, Paul Gasol did better, and he locked down Kevin Garnett. Basketball's become about scoring because it's the only way that 90% of the superstars can affect the game. That's why Jokic right now is hands down, bar none, the best player in the league.
Right
because he could score 17 points and win you the game because he's going to get 20 fucking boards and 15 assists.
Correct.
That's why LeBron did what he did, bro. LeBron played in 3 different franchises, 3 different systems. He was the system. Ain't no coach that coached LeBron had a system or is known for a system. You imagine if LeBron had coaches like Mike D'Antoni or Greg Popovich or Phil Jackson. Do you imagine how many more rings this dude would have?
Yeah.
I mean, these are facts. If you know basketball,
Surround him around Europeans early, bro.
a good coach can change a team. Look at the Pacers right now,
Rick
bro.
Carlisle.
They got Rick Carlisle,
He's the
who
oldest
Dallas
coach.
let go.
Yeah.
I still can't believe Dallas let Rick Carlisle go. And look what he did in Indiana in, 2 years?
Right.
Bro, coaching matters. Look at Phil. He left the Bulls. How many rings have they won since? None.
Man.
He went to the Lakers and won 5 more. That is the influence of a coach in basketball. LeBron never had that.
Yeah.
That's
why I appreciate role players. And even in those times where we watched those games, right? Those games early on where you would see franchises repeat, because we don't see that no more, because these individual players are scoring, right? But they're not really playing for each other. It's I want my money.
Correct.
You know, that's, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, that's what's really kind of gotten in the way. I
Yeah.
feel like this finals isn't getting enough attention because it's not as profitable.
Correct.
If it was just as profitable, then you know, it would be different. But that's why it's almost like boring type basketball. Shutting down Shea is the topic of the news, right? Like one of the topics, you know, like
Yeah.
defensive basketball. But I mean, that's a whole part 2 of 2 elements to basketball: score and stop the other team from scoring.
Yeah.
That's literally what basketball is, and people don't appreciate that anymore. But we're boring because we like those elements. That's how the sport's supposed to be played. How is
that's
football played?
Correct.
You go run to get a touchdown, I got to stop you from doing it, right?
Correct.
Teams win championships on defense in any sport, bro.
Yeah.
So-
a balance of both. You need to be able to stop the opponent more times than they can stop you, and that involves defense and offense. You know what I mean? It's not just scoring. Because look at Phoenix, bro. Phoenix in that run with Mike D'Antoni, when Steve Nash and Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire were there, bro. Offensively speaking, nobody was fucking with Phoenix, bro.
Mhm.
But come playoff
Fast-paced.
time, the court shrinks, bro.
Every
And them
year.
Spurs were outballing everybody
Yeah.
because they had dogs on defense. You know, Bruce Bowen,
Yep.
Tim Duncan, Ginobili.
Mhm.
Ginobili was coming off the bench, bro, running the second squad, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why those teams won, you know, when the Lakers were dominating and winning. You know, Shaq was one of the most dominant center. He was
Yeah.
stopping anybody that he was matching up against. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Ain't nobody outplaying Shaq at the center position. I don't think in any era, bro. Some centers were more skilled than Shaq.
They
But,
have
bro,
more
to
finesse,
sit here
but I
and tell
mean,
me that
pure
you're going to
aggression,
stop
no.
Shaq, no fucking way, bro. It's just not going to happen, you know?
As far as the role of a center, I think Jokic has totally shifted the team necessity as far as what franchises are looking for. He's totally changed it.
He
You
has.
have to be a triple threat at a center position now, but before that, Shaq was that dude.
Yeah.
And even now,
But even in the finals right now, if Shaq was to go against Jokic, bro, he would eat him alive because Jokic's not going to be able to be shooting threes,
yeah,
you know?
100%.
So,
Again, it just comes down to playoff basketball. Cutting, everybody gets touches. The importance of a mid-range game. That's why it's almost like in every slide throughout the game, they always talk about 3-point misses. That's also ruined the game.
oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's
You know,
what's
they say
also-
Curry changed the game, but it's a double-edged sword.
It is a
because now
double-edged
everybody
sword.
thinks they're Curry.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been a good one.
Yeah.
In the Clouds Podcast, episode 6 is out. Thank you all for the questions, and let's get it on the next one.
We appreciate it.